Before leaving Greece, I was visited by Ethan Signer. Ethan had played mandolin in the Charles River Valley Boys and was now studying biochemistry in Cambridge, England. He had just returned from a trip to Ireland with Bill Clifton, an American bluegrass singer who was living in England at the time. A woman named Peggy Jordan had organized some gigs for them in Ireland. Ethan suggested that she could possibly do the same for us later that summer. That sounded good to me, so he said he'd contact her and get something organized. After leaving Greece, I visited John and Uli in Munich for a few days and headed for England to meet up with Ethan at the ferry in Holyhead. Once in Dublin, the plan was to meet Peggy Jordan at O'Donoghue's pub near St. Stephen's Green in the center of town. Naturally, while we were waiting for Peggy to arrive, we had to have some pints of Guinness. 2 or 3 hours passed and still no Peggy. By then, we were overhearing a plot being hatched to liberate either the Inner or Outer Hebrides from their Protestant English rulers. These people were going to hire a plane and liberate them. My first hours in Ireland, and I was already in the thick of things. Peggy finally arrived like a whirlwind. While we had a bite to eat, Peggy said that she had 3 or 4 pub gigs lined up. Nothing big, but we'd be able to make a few pounds. Suddenly she jumped up and told us we needed to head over to this hotel because Dominic Behan, Brendan's brother, was having a party there to celebrate the opening of a play of his. There was quite a crowd, but Peggy had no trouble bringing us right into the center of the action. There was Dominic Behan ordering pints by the tabletop. This was the serious heart of Dublin. I'd seen Brendan Behan do a reading at MIT. He was wild enough, but this was the real thing here. It wasn't a stage show. We managed to get out of there after midnight, but Peggy wasn't done. We're off to a session. We piled into her VW and wound up in a small hall on one of Dublin's back streets. Although it was 1 a.m, the place was jammed, and there was a great session going on, fiddles and flutes. Until then, my only experience with Irish music had been hearing my father sing The Wearin' of the Green, or the Clancy brothers and Tommy Makem singing ballads and drinking songs. I knew nothing about tunes. There seemed to be no end to them. One player would start off, and immediately the others would join in. The sound of all those fiddles and flutes playing together had the same mesmerizing effect as some of the old-time fiddling I'd heard at Galax. They played set after set of jigs or reels, urged on by the shouts of the people crowded around them, until the session finally wound down. For the first time I heard the expression, "That was mighty, a mighty session," from a man next to me in the outside toilet. The perfect word to sum it all up, mighty. Finally, we were headed back to Peggy's house, when the motor began to splutter. We were out of gas. There was nothing to do but to abandon the car there, take all our stuff, and walk the last couple of miles. We climbed the front steps up to the front door of this beautiful old Georgian house and were let in by Peggy's son James, who was about 16. He was up and had a big pot of soup on the stove, along with tea, bread, and butter on the table. Everything was ready for us. As I was to find out, this was not an unusual night in this house. I had been welcomed into Peggy Jordan's world. So ended my first day in Ireland. I stayed with the Jordans for 3 weeks. Peggy's husband Tom was a civil servant in the post office, as quiet as she was voluble. In addition to James, there was Mary, Louise in Assault, Weeds and Thistles, so it was a full and busy house. Peggy had become very involved in the folk music revival and had organized a series of late-night music sessions at a cinema on Grafton Street in Dublin, which eventually gave rise to the formation of the Dubliners. She had also put on Pete Seeger in a concert and was very helpful in setting up little gigs for traveling American musicians like ourselves. She reminded me a bit of Betsy Siggins. She had lots of energy, was not afraid to speak her mind.